Hello, this is Lightsavior. We're with Tidy Technologies. My name is Cameron Martz. I was helping do the PowerPoint of the project. Over to my right.
I'm Leonardo Ballesteros, and I was the representative for the group, so I was in charge of communicating to the Impacts Lab, to Professor Diane, which she does a lot of things. She helps us with our webpage. She helped me with a bunch of information regarding products, and yeah, I talked to Professor Stratigakis and inform him about how we're doing with our project. Up to Jeremy.
I'm Jeremy Kepper. I was quality assurance. I made sure that the product worked and that in the process it did not burn any houses down. And that was about it. And now over to Brad.
I'm Brad McDonald. I am the construction manager on this project. My goal and job was to find the parts for our project and assort them in a way that actually had a good product at the end. I also had to stay on schedule and make sure that each week we accomplished a certain amount of tasks, so that way we could be completed at the end of our 6 weeks.
We also had Gracie. Gracie, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name's Gracie Berger. I'm virtual, so you don't see me, but I help with the PowerPoint and the design matrix on that. So yeah.
And then obviously our professor, Alex, was the one that led us through this. Just a quick introduction of why we made our product. In 2020, there was a large pandemic that hit the world. It crippled the world economically, socially, and created a lot of issues throughout the globe, really. And so our product was mainly constructed in an idea because of what happened. We wanted to create something that could make people feel more comfortable and make them feel safe again in a place or a time where people don't really feel that way right now. So we've worked really hard to make sure that our product is useful and it'll be a good component in people's lives to help protect them against certain viruses or bacteria.
So as Cameron said before, we did it for COVID, but then we realized that not only can it deal with disinfecting for COVID, it can also deal with disinfecting for flu, the common flu, and any type of bacteria or virus. So that was one thing we obtained from this. Using UV light, as said before, helps disinfect things if under the right time frame under the UV light. And we designed this box so it's safe and you don't get affected, because this UV light does let out some not radiation, but harmful gases that may affect you if you inhale for a while. Now over to Jeremy.
So we wanted to make sure that it would had a protective shield out around it, which is the box. And we wanted to be able to fit any daily items, such as your shoes, your phone, keys, whatever it may be. And we also made sure to add timers and a safety timer so that you couldn't overdo it and end up harming your whatever your item is that's in there, as well as maybe yourself. And so our initial idea was to have a UV light in a box that could obviously easily sterilize anything. And we wanted to add something in there, such as a rack. We ended up adding a kind of like a rack that you can put your shoes on, put your phone on, put anything like that on that would get targeted all around from the UV light. And then we added the timer and switches to make sure that you don't obviously harm your product or yourself or the box. So the design solutions that we came up with all were 18 by 12 box with a safety timer, safety latch. And we added inside the box, we added a stainless steel wallpaper around it so that it will reflect the light and go under the object that's in there. And we also added 2 rocket switches on the box. Put both of those on and it will start. And with that, we had a 3-prong extension cord. All right, now over to Gracie.
Okay, so for the design matrix, basically the properties that we decided that were the best were, I put shoe safe, which it could be any item, but we were using shoes as our main thing. And that as a pretty high weight because you gotta make sure the item's safe. Power safe, of course, gotta be safe. Attainable parts, we needed to make sure we got the right parts and what would be good for the product. The cost, we had a budget for the product. User friendly, it's always important to be able to use it and easily. And easy to transport, we put that as like a 3 on the weight. And then our options, I calculated it, and our final option was the best because it had the highest total score.
Okay, and like I said before, I was a construction manager on this job. I kind of delegated each week on how our schedule was set up so that way we stayed on task for the build. During our week 1, we took a look at the box that Leo got from the Impacts Lab, and it wasn't quite set up for what we were wanting to accomplish. So within our first week, we had to deconstruct the first box and assemble or start our project that you see today. When we were through with the first week, we noticed that the lid for the box actually was too thin. So within our box, we have 2 gas shocks that actually run the lid and actually hold it up for you. But as you shut the lid and you locked it, the top was so flimsy that it would actually bow and let UVC light escape. And that was harmful for the people that were going to be using this product in their home. So within our second week, we reconstructed the lid. We attached the gas shocks to it, and everything seemed to be functioning properly. We had to install a seal around the lid so that way light wouldn't escape, because we were still worried that there was some cracks that it could escape. Within our second week, we installed the timer on the top, and we began running wiring throughout the whole system. What we came to find out was our timer that we had, we couldn't use it as kind of a control panel for the power because it would not allow a load to actually come out of the timer. So we couldn't power a light through the timer. We ended up having to install these 2 rocker switches. The cord that comes in has a ground, a neutral, and a power wire. The ground wire, essentially, we didn't end up using in our end result for the product. The neutral wire goes to one of the rocker switches, which in turn goes and branches off. One of the wires goes to the UVC, and the other wire goes to the timer. It's the same thing for the power wire for the other rocker switch. The power comes in, goes to the rocker, then branches off. One goes to the light, and one goes to the timer. This allows us to essentially run the product by switching both rocker switches on. If you want to, we can demo, I guess.
Oh, let's go through the construction photos real quick.
Oh, that's fine.
Just the construction process.
Yeah.
I'll go over the construction photos because I took them. Here we have Jeremy beginning days. He was sanding the wood because it was really rough from the project before, so we needed to sand it because you got splinters and we didn't want to be dealing with splinters all the time working with it. And we have Bradley here cutting the first lid that unfortunately we did not use. Again, another photo of Brad cutting the lid. Here we have how we started building the box out of the wood we have. I guess. Oh, here's cutting the base. So inside the box, we had to make an adjustment and cut a square because it was fully like cold. So we had to cut that. And here we have Brad teaching Jeremy how to cut wood. He had no prior knowledge, so he learned a lot. Here we had Jeremy.
And this was at the point where we decided we had to reconstruct the lid. This is out of a piece of, was it 5/8?
Yeah.
5/8 plywood for the lid. And this gave us a lot more rigidity for the lid. So there's no flex in it, and it allows our latch to actually lock and stay put. One other, I think, is a cool design feature is if this is in someone's home and let's say a child comes up and presses the button, it will not open. There's a secondary feature where you actually have to push the lid down in order for it to disengage. This, in fact, actually solved our problem that we had before. We had 2 contact disconnects that were on the front here that ended up not working for us. We had to scrap that idea and go with the 2 rocker switches. The 2 rocker switches allow us to have a safety control as well. Both rocker switches have to be engaged for the UVC light to work. And I feel like that's a good property because the UVC light can actually cause damage to your eyes. Is that right?
Yes.
If it's looked upon, that's why we have a sill that's around the top. This allows no light to escape. Sorry about that.
It's perfect. Could have said it better.
Is that the installation?
No, there's still more pictures, sorry.
Our computer
Talking
kind
about-
of.
Here Brad is installing one of the shocks. It was really difficult because we even had to cut a bit of the nuts that we used because they were long and we didn't have that much space to mess around with. So he had to cut them. Really hard job. Respect them, Brad, for that.
Right.
And we had to make sure the shocks were like pretty much aligned because if not, the box would open wrong and it wouldn't close properly. If you could see the shocks. That's with the latch.
That's when we added the latch, and it looks like we added the seal.
Yeah, this is I think week 3 where we added the seal around the top. And then we went from here to installing the timer and the wiring that was in this.
There's the completed box.
And there's our end result.
So I want to talk really quickly about what a UVC light is and why it's so important in killing the bacteria, killing any kind of virus, typically. Without getting too technical about it, it's the UVC light sanitizer acts as a penetrating the thin wall of a small microscopic organism and destroying its nucleic acids. This disrupts its DNA structure and either kills it or renders it unable to reproduce, and therefore harmless. So after a certain amount of time period, it'll do all that kind of work and everything will be sanitized with it. It just destroys the virus or the DNA completely. Yeah, let's go through the testing process. So if somebody wants to show how we do.
Okay, so at this point, we're actually going to demonstrate for you guys and show you how it
There you
operates.
go. Oh, it is over here.
So when a customer buys our product and gets home with it, they will of course plug it in. The product is essentially dysfunctional without turning the product on. You would put, let's say, a wallet or some keys after a long days of work in the product,
Mask.
and a pocket knife,
Your mask.
some COVID mask, your shoes. Like I said, we invented this box for nurses' shoes and things like that because a lot of nurses get off work and they realize that after 5 or 6 months, their shoes are contaminated. They need to get some new ones. And they work 12 to 13, 14 hours a day, so they're walking a lot. They have to buy expensive shoes. So by putting it in here at the end of the day, you shut the lid, lock it in place, you turn your 2 rocker switches on. The timer is already programmed from the manufacturer. Whenever the customer gets it in their home, it's programmed at 15 minutes. All they will have to do,
25.
is it 25?
25 minutes.
Okay, scratch that, it's 25 minutes. They will press start and the product will begin sanitizing. The light is on and sanitizing the customer's shoes. At the end of the 25 minutes, the timer will stop. The customer will then come, turn the rocker switches off, and wait 30 minutes or so.
Yes,
25
you
minutes.
would open the lid back up, and since it does release some gases, it's not good to concentrate the gases and grab your stuff right away. So you would reopen the box, let it ventilate, then come back like 10 minutes later, pick up your stuff, you're good to go, you're like, ready, let's go out.
Yeah, and it's awesome because these nurses can get up the next day and feel confident that they have clean shoes to wear. They're not going to be bringing that into the working atmosphere, and therefore people that already have COVID in their facility, they're not introducing new viruses and bacteria back into the building.
And we were wanting to test products, but we felt it was a little dangerous to test it the way that we felt was necessary. Obviously, we don't want to have anything with COVID. Test it and then prove that it doesn't have it afterwards. So because of the UVC light and the strength of it and the amount of time we allow in the box, there's no doubt in our mind that it would kill any bacteria and sterilize it completely. This is just sort of our cost analysis. We gave the amount of cost per item, and then we also have a percentage of what it costs in a pie chart. The total cost of the product is $99.52. And to go to the cost analysis as well, we set a price point of $100. We were allowed to use the impact slab for some of our product, or some of the things that we used, so we utilized them, but we also spent about $99.52. We had a $100 budget, and if we were to take it to larger scale, we feel very comfortable that we could cut that price in half and cost $50 per product.
So before we close, I wanted to add that this product could actually be enhanced. Unfortunately, in today's market, $100 can't stretch too far. Personally, if I was to rebuild this product, I would love to add a larger timer in here that actually signaled, an audible signal whenever it was done. And I could also run the power circuitry through the timer. So this could be my on and off switch. Unfortunately, the timer that we chose doesn't allow us to do that. Also, I would like to revamp the box. It's kind of ugly, but we only had a $100 budget, so maybe in the future we can revisit this and tackle it in a different direction.
The lumber is quite expensive right now, so we gotta do what we gotta do.
Okay. Thank you for letting us present our project. Be bold, be bright, be you. Kite Technologies, light safety.
Thank you, guys.
Do you have any questions? Do you have any questions?
Oh, do you have any questions for us?
No, I think we covered everything.
Anybody online?
Anything, any random questions, it's fine.
You said the ground's not hooked up to anything currently?
Say that again?
You said the ground plug is not hooked up to anything
Yes,
currently?
that's a great question. So whenever we ran into the wiring concerns that we had originally tried to route our power supply through the timer, but then we found out we couldn't. The timer actually calls for a ground, and so we changed the cording for a control, power, and ground wire. But the end result is that the ground is not necessary because the light only runs on a neutral and a power wire, and so that's all we supplied to it. We had to end up capping the ground off, and it functions and works properly without it.
Cool, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Thanks for the question. You said that gas was released whenever the light is being run.
Yes.
Is that you guys made for future designs having ideas on how, rather than just letting the gas dissipate after it's done cleaning, any ideas for how to maybe route that gas during the cleaning process?
So the gas in general, it's only dangerous if you like stand there and inhale it. So it's not like, so once you open it and ventilate it with the gases we have right now, they like balance, or you would say they reach like a point where they're not like toxic anymore. But that's a good point. I was thinking about like a filter or anything like an air filter adding, but it's really expensive. So we just recommend like you leave it ventilating, like I said, and just leave it in a room or leave it somewhere where you're not like standing there over it like smelling it.
Another thing that we discussed, I think it was week 5, week 6, if we had a little bit more money just to throw into this, I think personally like maybe a computer fan on the back side.
Definitely.
And then when our timer actually went off, it activated the fan to turn on. And so the customer, this timer actually has 2 settings for a timer sequence. So you could set up the 25 minutes on the first one, and then after that counted down, it would count down like another 25 minutes for the fan to kick on. And then if the customer's seen that the fan was off, they know that the whole function is done, and it's safe to grab their product. But we didn't have the time or the resources to do that.
That's good, next generation.
That's our
That's right.
next one.
Gen 2.
Yep. Any other question?
Success. Thank you guys.
Thank you guys. Thank you guys.